On September 10th, a briefing was held for congressional leaders focusing on the persecution of Ahmadi Muslims around the world. This special briefing, which took place in the Cannon House office building, was hosted by the two co-chairs of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Caucus to discuss the latest developments and trends involving the systemic and institutionalized persecution of Ahmadi Muslims, as well as other religious minorities in the Middle East, Far East, and South and Central Asia. Congresswoman Jackie Speer from California delivered remarks on behalf of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Caucus, highlighting the persecution of Ahmadis and the good works being done by the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community USA.
As our country looks at Pakistan as a very important ally in terms of dealing with Al-Qaeda and the Haqqani network and any number of other groups that take their opportunities to find safe havens in Pakistan. But we cannot overlook the gross violations of human rights that have taken place in Pakistan. And as you have so eloquently put forth, the fact that there are 18 people on death row right now and another 20 incarcerated for life for blasphemy in a country like Pakistan that is well educated is really incredibly disturbing. So we need to increase our voices. And part of the caucus effort is to educate members of Congress and their staffs so that we can do what is right.
Witnesses included Mahmoud Ahmad, an attorney and the Assistant National Director of Public Affairs for the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community USA, who provided an overview of the persecution of Ahmadis around the world.
I want to first tell you a little bit about what really is the epicenter of persecution against Ahmadi Muslims, and that's the country of Pakistan. You know, as we're gathered here today, extremists in Pakistan, as we speak, are concluding a 10-day event, a celebration really from their perspective, in Faisalabad, which is Pakistan's second or third largest metropolis. And the purpose of their celebration is to commemorate the 40th anniversary of what is an extraordinary event in the history of Pakistan. And perhaps, from our perspective, I think, one of the darkest hours for religious liberty in the world, certainly in the post-World War II era. Because you see, on September 7th, 1974, almost exactly 40 years ago, Pakistan's National Assembly, which is the equivalent of this body, the US Congress in Pakistan, voted to amend Pakistan's constitution. And this wasn't any old amendment, but rather the Second Amendment, as it is now commonly known, forcibly declared Ahmadi Muslims as non-Muslims under the law. With its passage, Pakistan became the first state, and it remains the only one, to decide the faith of its citizens for them. There has been a rising, very alarming uptick in violence against Ahmadi Muslims. Suffice it to say that unlike the old adage, what happens to Ahmadi Muslims in Pakistan does not stay in Pakistan. Instead, the persecution of Ahmadi Muslims in Pakistan has provided legitimacy to both governments and extremists around the Muslim world.
Knox Thames, who is the Director of Policy and Research for the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, provided an independent perspective and offered recommendations for appropriate policies.
The Commission has become so concerned by the situation in Pakistan that for the past 2 years, in each of our annual reports, we have said that Pakistan represents the worst situation in the world for religious freedom for countries not currently designated as countries of particular concern by our government. And despite democratic institutions, Pakistan's legal environment is particularly repressive due to its blasphemy laws and other discriminatory legislation that we have heard about targeting Ahmadis.
The briefing was well received by those who attended and appreciated the depth of information provided. Asad Chaudhry, MTA News, USA.